Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play Cast. This is episode 191, brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. It's August 9th, you're watching it on the 10th or later. I'm Mike Byrne, aka magicman, your host for the day. We've got a bunch of fun things to talk about. Some predictions sure to fucking go wrong. Absolutely go wrong. And maybe some more try-on stuff. God, man, when it rains, it pours. When it rains, it pours. But some of it's good news, too, and we'll get into that as well. But before we do, let's introduce the hosts. On the line, you know him, you love him. Jason Winter, how are you?
I am doing just great, and you know what? I'm going to make an announcement. I am going to try out for Major League Baseball, too.
All right.
Just like Tim Tebow. I can do it. I played Little League for a few months when I was like 8 years old, so I think I still have the skills.
Pretty sure. And you know how to take the knee, so that's, do your little...
What?
You take your knee and put your hand on your head thing. Whatever the Tebowing knee is.
Oh, the Tebow pose? No. Baseball skills, man. Baseball.
Well, hey, it's going to be used there, too, right? I mean, it has to. It's a universal skill.
That would require him to get into a game.
True. Also on the line, Tim Tebow himself. I'm Zach Sharps. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Definitely not Tim Tebow, though. Definitely not Tim Tebow. I guess he doesn't learn that he's not going to be an NFL quarterback, so he wants to try out baseball. Who knows?
Welcome to the Sports Podcast, episode number 1.
He still makes more money than we do. But anyway, he's hosting that show now, isn't he? There's some home reality TV show thing with somebody else.
He's doing everything but being an NFL starting quarterback.
Yeah. Hey, before we get started with the news, any of you check out No Man's Sky yet?
No.
It's just released on the consoles now. We still got a couple of days for the PC release, but I have it for the PS4, but I haven't had a chance to even load it, let alone play it. So
I've watched it, and I sort of want it. I just wonder how long it would hold my attention.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too on that purchase, but no, just wanted to get your opinions on it.
I honestly played so much Elite Dangerous that it's going to take a price drop to like $30 for me to be interested in that. Because it's pretty much the same thing, but more ground exploration instead of like space combat. So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's head into the news that's actually free to play. Here we go. All right, so first up, let's get some predictions out of the way that are absolutely sure to go wrong, as they always do. Jason, let's go with yours first. You wrote an article this week talking about the upcoming Quake, which when we initially heard the preliminary announcements a while ago on it, we speculated, okay, it's Quake, so buy to play, but the market's changed an awful lot. This type of game kind of created that whole genre. You can't really call it a clone of anything. There's an awful lot of clones of it. Maybe they'll break it into free-to-play to hit that type of audience. So we kind of bantered it back and forth behind the scenes, but the news was so small that we just left it go. You wrote an article explaining that either way might actually be good for Quake, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are reasons why it could be either buy-to-play or free-to-play. The buy-to-play argument is probably more along the lines of it really is kind of a niche in its own sense. It's... Like I said, it's older, and it's got a very dedicated fan base, but the type of fan base isn't going to respond probably all that well to letting free-to-play people in, letting all the noobs and the casuals and whatever jump into a game that really almost was a defining game in esports just in general, like 10, 15 years ago. So it's got a pretty high skill bar, sort of thing that you might almost expect there to be some sort of barrier to entry into in order to get that decent quality of play, even though they're saying, oh, it's... Anyone can pick it up and play it, and if you want to get better, that's great. Get good, whatever. I still think it's going to lean more towards a more hardcore crowd. That's the kind that are going to be more interested in wanting to pay that premium price in order to get that full experience. But then again, as I say, it's a little bit of a niche. If they're aiming for a larger crowd, the way to do that these days is with free-to-play. Unless you do have a really huge built-in audience, almost like Blizzard had with Overwatch. I think you can get away with it. I think Lawbreakers not so much. So the question is, though, where does Quake Champions lie in between the spectrum of Overwatch versus Lawbreakers? Is it big enough to maintain itself with a single box price, buy to play, or does it need that infusion of a lot of players to get in and to really give it the hype and the population it needs to sustain itself. So you're not sitting in queues for 10, 15 minutes while you're waiting for a match. How's it going to work? Which one is going to be better for it? And there are arguments, I think, that go either way.
Zach, before we get into our actual predictions on this and our personal thoughts, would you agree that it plays in Quake's favor either way in some ways, or is there just a clear choice for them?
I think it does. I mean, it's really one of those things where buy-to-play has its strengths and weaknesses, and then also free-to-play has its strengths and weaknesses. And I think really when it comes down to it, you got to think of models as a staircase, right? If you're walking down a staircase, you want to have, as a business, 2 steps to walk down instead of 1, because once you step off the last step, your game's done. And so there's definitely some strengths to the argument that buy-to-play should be first. There's arguments that free-to-play should be first, because that's only where it's going to be successful. But we don't really know how much of that Quake fan base is still engaged in the entire sort of scene and is looking for something new like this to release. So.
And we did have what? We had Quake Live, right? I mean, that was free. Yes.
And then it went away.
I'm not a huge. Well, no, you can still get that, isn't it, on Steam?
Didn't it shut down?
I don't think that's here. Let's do a little quick research. Quake Live Steam. I'm pretty sure you can still get that on Steam.
Quake. Oh, they stopped making it free to play. That's what they did.
Oh, so now it's a purchase. Okay.
Yeah, now it's a $10 purchase.
$10 purchase. Gotcha. All right, so we've seen it go have a free-to-play component and then go fully buy-to-play. I disagree with Jason's premise a little bit here, only because of the IP. I don't think free-to-play really makes sense, but what was the official word from you being at QuakeCon this week?
The official word was that there is no word. They officially have not decided. I got that straight from Pete Hines, their senior VP of marketing.
So was it, typical PR speak, or did you get the impression that they legitimately have not decided yet?
I actually, I got that impression because I actually asked him right at the end of the interview I had with him. I asked him, I was like getting ready to walk away because I was going to save all my Quake Champion questions for another guy that I wound up getting my interview canceled with. So right at the end, I was like, oh, by the way, Quake Champions, do you know if this can be free to play or buy to play? And he's like, I really don't know. Have we announced that? I'd have to, and he really did seem legit, like he wasn't sure. By that notion, I get the impression that they really didn't know, because I feel like he would have had some answer one way or another if they'd known for sure, or even if there had been some secret talks or something.
Yeah, and if they do know, it's still at a very high level of knowledge. It's not dispersed to everybody yet. All right,
well, he would be someone.
Well,
who
yeah, he
would.
But yeah. So, all right, so let's make our predictions. I'll go first since I've kind of already tipped mine. I don't think free-to-play makes sense in this context, and I say that for 2 reasons. One, Quake. The IP is going to pull people. It's not like a Black Desert Online, to one of Zach's points, where you end up reaching a final step in the game and then you have to wait for content and all kinds of model changing stuff going along on the way. Yeah, Black Desert Online's kind of taking a beating right now on the way they're changing things. I tend to think that, yep, this type of game, although I could certainly see a benefit to free-to-play, I think this one's going buy-to-play. I think it makes sense for the Quake audience. I think the audience is big enough, and I think that games as recently as Overwatch and things like that have given them the assurances they need that there's still very much an audience for the multiplayer shooter, particularly with a powerful company like Blizzard or a powerful IP like Quake behind it. I'm going to go on the record, Quake, buy-to-play. Zach?
I'm going to say that it's going to be buy-to-play as well, but not a full $60 box price. It will likely be in the 30 and under range, because I just don't think that Bethesda would go out and have one of their particular big IPs go into a very competitive market that's now the team-based shooter. Even though Quake was one of the originators, it still doesn't make sense for it to be 60. It might be, but I think it's definitely buy-to-play, about $30 or lower.
And Jason?
I tend to agree. I think they'll go kind of like the Overwatch route with either a $30 or $40 base package, and then something more you can get, additional skins or whatever for a collector's edition with a big statue. But I can't agree with what some people are saying in the comments of that article, that buy to play first and then free to play later. I could see that being a case maybe a year or two down the road.
You mean like Atlas Reactor? Yeah,
well,
that was free, then buy to play, now free.
What is it this week?
And we've said that that's probably going to be the case with Lawbreakers. We've said we've even said that's probably going to be the case at some point with Overwatch, like it or not. When you stop sucking in the box sales, you monetize it a different way to keep it going. So that kind of makes sense to me too. But I'm out of the gate, I think buy to play. So we all agree buy to play, at least initially, Quake, and Zach has put out there a little lesser of a price, a $30, $40 box tag. All right.
And it also makes sense, too, that they have Elder Scrolls Legends to test the free-to-play market out a bit more. And as much as that's a card game, when it comes to Blizzard, Hearthstone showed them how free-to-play sort of can bring in a lot of revenue. Bethesda might see the same thing, and once the players start dwindling from Quake, they just might flip it to the free-to-play switch. So
I don't think they needed the Elder Scrolls Legend to show them that free-to-play is viable.
As a company, companies do like to have that confirmation that their IPs can
But
bring
they
in
don't.
They
don't. It's still in beta. They don't have that confirmation yet.
Yeah, but by the time that it's out of beta and making money, I mean,
you assume it's going to go out of beta and make money.
Well,
you are just so negative.
You're negative with the game.
Man.
So, I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit. We'll talk about this in a little bit.
All right. How about this one? Revelation Online. We continue to get trailers that look gorgeous. I mean, the game looks good. If you want to check out gameplay, obviously, I'm going to tell you to go where I like to go for gameplay from overseas, Steparu. Just fantastic coverage for things in other languages. Just go to Steparu's site and check out some gameplay if you're not happy with just the fly-throughs and other trailers that they've been sending out. The game looks good. It's got a more action-y combat and everything. We still have yet to get our hands on it at all in any way, shape, or form. So we're just going on speculation. However, my.com is still hiding behind we're not sure what we want to do with the model. Now keep in mind, my.com is Armored Warfare, free-to-play. Is Skyforge, free-to-play. I mean, their library is built on a free-to-play library, so the assumption would be, anytime we ever saw Nexon, okay, whatever the game is, it's going to be free-to-play, then Lawbreakers smacked us in the face. So the assumption there is that my.com will probably do a free-to-play with Revelation Online, but they're being so coy about the model and letting it drag on that I tend to think maybe Black Desert Online dropping with a fee kind of said to my.com, maybe we could make this buy-to-play with a cash shop a la Guild Wars 2 and things like that. I think Guild Wars 2 obviously gives people the idea that it's certainly a viable option if you do it correctly so you don't piss people off dramatically. But there's certainly a concern with IP not being well known when Black Desert Online dropped with a fee and did well initially out of the gate as far as sales go. Maybe we could do that with Revelation Online. Jason, how far off the mark am I? Where do you think it's going?
Pretty far off, yeah. Because like you, I agree. We knew about Black Desert for years, and we followed that. A lot of people were really interested in it. Revelation Online doesn't seem to have that same kind of buzz. I don't think it's got that same kind of interest level. And I think trailers like this aren't going to help it. I was feeling a little... I thought I was being the cynical jerk when I watched this trailer, and I was like, God, this thing's putting me to sleep. But then I looked at the comments, and I was like, yeah, everyone kind of agrees with me. Like, oh, look, it's a pretty trailer for an MMO. Wow. Yeah,
and that's why I put out there, if you want to check out gameplay, go look at Steparu.
Well, yeah, but
these are just marketing things. And Black Desert Online.
Then market better. You guys are getting paid to do this. Do a better job.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. For God's
sakes.
It
was boring. I could go and find 8 million different videos just like this of various MMOs over the years. They mean nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. And I'm not interested. If this is the thing you're sending out to all the major news sites and what they're going to put out there, this is what people are going to look at. I look at this and go, whatever. I'm not going to Steparu to look at anything else. This is junk. So
you think free to play then?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to, because I don't think they're going to do a good enough job of building up the license, building up the property to get people interested enough to pay $40 for it.
Then why the coyness with the FAQ still? I mean, we're heading
Uh,
into a release later this year.
I don't think that means anything any more than Bethesda saying we're not sure. We want to make sure Elder Scrolls Legends does well in free to play before we decide. They're just taking their time. I don't think it means anything in particular.
Right, but you have a company that already does free-to-play games. They know whether free-to-play works for them or not. They don't need that initial shot across the bow that maybe a company like Bethesda, who's historically only done buy-to-play stuff, needs. Why be coy about it? I don't get it, especially this
Neither do
close
I.
to.
Neither do we.
Especially this close to potential release. Zach, what do you think?
I don't know. I still can't make up my mind. It's like if it's very 50-50 because in one scenario I see maybe with Skyforge they saw a lot of money being brought in with the founders packs, and so they're like, okay, maybe we can just do a buy to play route for maybe the first year, trick people into buying this game thinking it's going to stay buy to play for a while, and then switch it to the free to play route.
Wow. Little accusations
that's-
of the old bait and switch. Damn.
I honestly think that might be what they're trying to sort of look at, because I mean, look at with the way that Skyforge was monetized. Monetization in Skyforge was basically you're going to hit a cap, so then you're going to have to use your order system, in which requires real life money in order to speed through it and boost your prestige a lot to get past that cap. Now, of course, the caps have been increased, and now it's not that big of a deal, but at the beginning of the game, it was. And so I just see Revelation, as much as I think it should be free to play, it definitely should, because as much as I pay attention to overseas games, I didn't even know about it for a while. I forgot that Sapporo even covered the dang thing. And then when I saw the trailers for it, I'm like, okay, well, I don't really know how much I'm going to play this game. It doesn't really have the lore that that Black Desert does. Like, when you look at Black Desert, you're like, wow, that game looks amazing. Of course, when you play it, there's a whole nother story. But Revelation, you look at it and you're like, okay, well, this looks sort of like everything else, but you have wings. Oh, we saw that with Ion. It's not really that big of a deal. And so they definitely need to go free to play, but will they? I don't know. It depends on what they saw with Skyforge and the hype that they had for that game, how it translated in terms of founders packs, and whether or not that's enough money for them to keep it buy to play for a short period and then switch it to free to play. So I'm still 50-50. If I had to throw out a prediction, I would say that buy to play is definitely how they're going to start.
I think I tend to agree with you. I think it should be free to play. I don't see why my.com would be coy about it at this point, though. It's not like it's a title that's a year and a half away and you would expect these types of responses. It's pretty damn close. Yeah. So I don't get the lack of an answer on that this close, unless you're honestly considering, let's try something with the buy-to-play route. I agree with Jason. I think this absolutely should be free-to-play. Absolutely should be free-to-play. Just given the IP, the market, the lack of, hype. But I think they may try to go buy to play. I'm gonna lock it in as I think they're gonna go buy to play, even though I think they should go free to play. Jason, you're saying free to play out of the gate as your final prediction, and Zach, you're going buy to play just because you have to.
Pretty much, yeah, because I think they're honestly going to try and gauge the beta numbers and see how many people are actually anticipating it, and then throw out a model after that. So
can you really wait that long?
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
Games are in betas for years nowadays, so if they need to spend an extra couple months doing a cash drop, then they can do it. So, yeah.
I think they got to answer sooner than that. All right. So those are predictions sure to go wrong. Everybody said buy to play for Quake. Everybody said buy to play for Revelation Online, except for Jason, who said free to play, although we all agree that
it should.
It should be free to play. All right, so next up, Try on Worlds. Oh, God. Last episode, we talked about Atlas Reactor, an episode or two ago. I lost track of when it was. I think it was last week. Going free to play again for the most part, with some severe limitations on the account. Well, this week, Tryon Worlds accidentally revealed their Rift expansion. Not just revealed it, but put the damn thing up for sale, and people were able to buy it. They had to reverse those sales because they hadn't actually officially announced the expansion yet. We ran a news story prior to Gamescom information coming out about expecting Rift to announce Starfall Prophecy at Gamescom. We didn't hear anything officially out of Tryon Worlds, and then all of a sudden their expansion was for sale for $39.99 standard edition and a $59.99 deluxe edition, and then that site was quickly taken down because the damn thing wasn't even announced yet, Zach. It wasn't even announced yet. Oh, Tryon, why you do this? Why you do this? How did this one happen? I mean, like, okay, snafus happen, and oh shit, I clicked publish. We've done it on embargoed pieces, right? We have an embargo, and I didn't remember it was embargoed, or Jason didn't put embargo in the title, or I was out and said, Jason, can you publish this, and gave him the wrong time. It happens, right? I get how the publish button gets accidentally clicked. But this was up long enough for people to actually buy it. How does this happen, Jason?
The site was probably like scheduled to go live at
It was
whatever.
a total separate site, too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's scheduled to go live at like 9 a.m. Pacific or whatever. And they're going to put out the press release at the same time. But then some vice president was like, no, wait, we got to change a couple of words in the press release. Send it back to the guys to write it up. Okay, you guys still working on it? All right, 9:15. All right, it's ready. Wait, what do you mean the site's been up already for 15 minutes? How did... It's just probably a lack of communication between departments. Having a strict deadline, but then someone decided, no, we need to do more beforehand, and did more on their part without telling the other part what needed to be done. And, yeah. That's just my guess.
Coming fall of 2016, Zach, which means, sometime in, like, the next 3 months. Boom. Expansion for Rift.
Yeah, I mean, out of all Tryon's issues as of late, I don't think this is hardly even a blip on the radar. I really don't. It's a mistake, an honest mistake. Any game maker can do it. It just happens. I mean, look at all the times that Blizzard has tried to basically keep things concealed, and then everything's pretty much spoiled before BlizzCon, or at least rumored, and most of the time it's accurate before BlizzCon. So it's really one of those things where it's not a big deal. I really don't think. Yeah, I definitely agree with Jason. It's probably a communication issue. So
yeah, and I don't think it's a huge deal or anything, but it's funny, right? It's really, really
This could
funny.
only happen to Tryon.
Yeah, and the fact that this type of stuff keeps happening to the same company just compounds my hilarity. I just absolutely love it. Like, I hear the Benny Hill theme song when I imagine the Tryon offices at some points. I want to come back to Starfall Prophecy just for a second, because I do want to talk about the expansion briefly, because I think they're doing, if I'm going to criticize them for making a stupid snafu, I do also want to say I like a lot of the things that they're doing in this expansion, and some of the pricing and stuff like that. But before we do that, as far as other Tryon snafus this week, ArcheAge doesn't know how to schedule things, apparently. So if you're an ArcheAge player, you probably noticed that there were festival coins put in. The quote here on the Zodiac Festival was, "We took a moment to let everyone know we'll be releasing extra festival coins to make up for the rocky start of the Zodiac Festival. The lack of the festival law in Zolsried was due to a mismatch between the event's starting time and scheduled server maintenance. Festival law is only enabled when the server restarts, and that led to the issues that we found early in the event. So we can't schedule website stuff and marketing announcements, nor in-game events versus server restarts. Again, when it rains, it fucking pours, Jason."
They just need more clocks. They need more clocks in the Tryon offices.
So if you're an ArcheAge player, yeah, festival coins, have fun there. Now, let's go back to Starfall Prophecy. Level cap being raised to 70 in Rift. obviously, expansion, we expect that. Touted as the biggest expansion since the game went free to play. So basically, that's a way of saying it's bigger than Nightmare Tide. I mean,
Pretty much.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, Storm Legion was the first expansion, but that was when it still required a sub. Nightmare Tide was the first free expansion, so it's the biggest expansion since it went free to play. 5 new zones. However, one of them is going to be released after the actual expansion. It'll come in a later update. And then a ton of, like, as if Rift wasn't customizable enough, right? With your character and the souls and the ability and the gear. There's even more coming into the game. So weapons and armor is going to be able to be upgraded by completing heroic feats in-game. I love that type of shit. I just love it, Jason. Until I actually do it, and it's like grind out 900 things.
Exactly. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I love the idea of upgrading your weapons by accomplishing heroic feats. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing heroic feats a la Final Fantasy XIV's Zodiac and Anima weapons when it's farm up 900 of these things over the next month of your life. That, to me, is not completing a heroic feat. That is indulging in tedium and proving that you really, really just don't care. But I love the idea of accomplishing
Stop
heroic
saying that.
things.
It hurts me.
Why?
I love the idea. Is the classic? It's
No.
dupe of every MMO.
My
Those
thing,
words.
though, is I love the idea of doing something heroic. Like, okay, you put Guild Wars 2
and
does
they never
this.
work.
Guild Wars, no, you're right. They don't because
They're all
not
just big grinds.
Yes, that's exactly
Even
my
Guild
point.
Wars 2.
I like
Even
Guild Wars 2 with the legendary.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree with you on
I
Guild Wars 2.
love the idea of Jason, go out and
Absolutely.
accomplish this one huge big thing and +1 your weapon or whatever. And it being super challenging to do, and maybe you need some friends to do it. Maybe it's just a hard solo piece of content. You know, there's a skill barrier to it. But nobody ever implements it like that. It's
Stop
always
believing
run...
that they ever will. Stop. Look at that and go, God, I hate this, and move on from the expansion. Uninstall the game.
I do not have my Anima weapon in Final Fantasy. As much as I love Final, I just won't do it. Sorry.
I'm actually almost done with my 3rd legendary in Guild Wars 2.
Oh, God. They're also adding a new item rarity. So, yeah, Epic. Great.
Or
Eternal is above that now. Those actual pieces of gear have their own special abilities because they're legendary-ass equipment. And then planar fragments to imbue your gear. So now there's a ton of customization on the front of gear and your souls. Everybody's getting new abilities that augment all of your previous existing abilities for even more customization. And while I think this is all cool because I've played Rift off and on since it originally launched, I gotta say, Rift is probably a very, very overwhelming game to jump into as a new Rift player. Even an experienced MMO player, I think Rift is a tad overwhelming on the customization fronts. Am I right?
yeah, I mean that's kind of how I feel about it. Again, like, you know, even when you just started off with the whole soul system and everything like that, and then you move on to all this additional stuff they're adding, just adding more layers upon layers. If that's the sort of thing you like, and if you're already playing the game and you want to get in that, you want that extra bit of thing, that's great. You're going to love it, and you're going to love being able to get more stuff. But I can see how it's going to be really hard for new people to get in. And obviously, you don't have eternal rarity and all these upgrades and advancement things, you know, right when you start out.
Right.
But I think at some point, it just gets to you so much. I was in the same way with Lord of the Rings Online, like their legendary weapons. And eventually, I just got tired of it. I checked out I made sure I had all the right runes in, got all my right legacies on them, had everything done up. I'd grind out XP runes to get everything in there perfectly. And eventually, I was just like, you know, I'm going to enjoy playing another game, playing a game, rather than working with my menu system for half an hour trying to get my weapon, getting plus 0.05% extra damage on my weapon. I'd rather do something else than do this. And I wonder if it gets to that point with long-time Rift players where they're just going to get to the point of, you know, it's neat that you're trying to add new stuff and give me more power, but it's just such a thin experience at some point. It's not about having fun. It's like playing Eve. It's like manipulating spreadsheets. That's what it gets down to.
Zach, the big kind of pushback right now is one new raid, only one new raid, and Rift has historically... Ooh, thunder? Historically,
Storm Legion coming to
sort of
visit you?
tank driving by. Good lord. Armored Warfare is here. Historically, Rift has kind of always been, a little lesser on the raiding front and kind of accused of there being story content locked in raids. We're going to see... Seriously, what is that? Wow, that is a lot of thunder. Like, it just won't stop. Or my neighbor's blowing up my lawn. They're also introducing looking for raid so that more people can get access to that content as well. Good move, bad move. I'm kind of in the middle on this one personally.
I don't know, to go to the complexity front, I really think it depends on how you start playing Rift. If you hop into Rift from level 1, it's not that bad, especially if you're experienced with other MMOs. If you're not experienced with other MMOs, you might struggle with it. But if
the
you
new
just
boost
hop
to 65 is sure to rock your world if you use
what
it.
That's what I was about to say. If you start out the game and immediately buy the expansion and boost up, then you're going to be having some trouble. As far as the expansion itself, I think the price is too much, honestly, for Rift being as old as it is. I can't remember how much Nightmare Tide was. I think I got gifted that, so I didn't even have to purchase it.
Let's talk about that when you're done here. Let's hold on to that for a second.
Yeah, so as far as Rift goes, with the new expansion, everything to me sounds good. As someone who used to play the game, now I don't because Tryon is being Tryon, and I refuse to support them right now. Maybe they'll change, but history shows not really, and some commenter said that I had a political agenda against them, which I really don't. I just value my money. As far as Rift goes, though, I would still... It's really hard for me not to recommend the game because it has so much depth there. It's just Tryon.
Yeah, I had my own boycott of Tryon for a while, which ended, earlier this year, finally. I'm going to buy it. I like Rift. To me, though, it's like SWTOR is. I don't worry about the free-to-play aspect of Rift, because although I don't think it's terribly done, I think it was better when they initially did it than it is now. It's the game that if I'm going to go play, I just sub. I don't even think about it. I just go and sub, just like SWTOR. On the expansion pricing, I'm okay with the price points, $40 and $60 for a collector's set. Okay, fine, a bunch of digital goodies and titles and a boost and all that stuff. That doesn't bother me. I do like, though, Jason, that they fixed, based on the way Nightmare Tide rolled out, the way they're doing this. It's just go and buy the expansion, get all the content, a la Guild Wars 2, a la EverQuest 2, those types of models. Just buy the damn expansion and get everything. I hated in Nightmare Tide the way they piecemealed all that shit through the cash shop, where you bought the earring slots, where you bought this, you bought this.
I remember that. Oh, man.
I really like... that here, the way they put this in the producer's letter was based heavily on your feedback from our most recent expansion releases. We'll sell Starfall Prophecy as a simple premium expansion purchase instead of dividing it into individual unlocks like equipment slots or the ability to equip expansion loot. We hear you. And
based heavily on your feedback, meaning you really, really didn't like it.
Really didn't like that. So I am happy to see that they've corrected that as well. Yeah. And price point, that's always going to be a personal preference thing anyway. I'm looking forward to Starfall Prophecy. I'll be buying it. I don't know which version I'll buy. Sometimes they throw us being press a freebie here, so I always have to coordinate, whether or not I have to pay for it or not. So we'll figure it out, and we'll put a video together and throw it up there. Looking forward to it. I'm actually looking forward to it. Yay, Tryon. So finally, before we get to the bombs today, let's talk very briefly about the Elder Scrolls Legends, because we held off last week because Jason, again, was talking to the team at Bethesda this week. So what's the deal, Jason? You finally got some hands-on time. You got to talk to some people. What info do you have for us?
Actually, not really much of anything, because they weren't really talking so much about that as much as they were about Quake Champions and some of their other games. So, but what I did do is I did get to play the open beta, which launched on last Thursday. So I have been playing a fair amount of that. I'm really enjoying the PvE aspects of it. I'm surprised about that. I think they did a really good job with the storyline stuff. I've been going through the PvE arena, which I think is a really great innovation. something unlike what Hearthstone does. They have both PvE and PvP arenas where you draft your deck. You can go through and play through that. And I think it's not, it's not radically different from Hearthstone in the sense that it's, not well, of course you think all CCGs are the same, so whatever. But it's not as different as like Chronicle, but I think it does enough different things to be kind of distinctive, and it has that Elder Scrolls license, that property behind it, so it could do all right, and I really think they've done a good job with the polish on it. I think it looks good, plays good, and might be something I play a fair bit of still.
See, I gave it an A-bomb last week, and I need to explain now that we're allowed to talk about it. It's not because it's a CCG. It's not because it's a bad game. I agree with you. I liked that there was a more in-depth PvE experience, that there was a whole storyline going through this. I also like the arena stuff being on the PvE side of things as well. It's smooth, it plays well, there's some cool things, little spins and tweaks on the lanes and stuff like that. It's not a bad game. I hate it, personally, because I think it's a bastardization of the Elder Scrolls license. But that's just me. That's just me. I hate, like, when Resident Evil spun off into these oddball titles and Elder Scrolls. I hate this. This is not Elder Scrolls. Stop it. The Witcher is different for me because Gwent was a game inside The Witcher that, based on player feedback, they're extracting that exact game and making it its own. So it's not like they're just trying to cash in on the license. I like what they've done with the game. I would rather see them make another fucking Elder Scrolls, please.
Okay. Let me actually get to you now with one of the final question I had for Pete Hines. Now, my question was, I said, a lot of people have talked about Elder Scrolls Legends in the sense of, hey, this is cool, but where's my Elder Scrolls 6? Why are you guys doing that instead? Not to say that you're not working on something or several somethings, but that can often be the perception. So first of all, would you say that kind of represents your view?
That would be pretty fair, yeah.
Okay, all right. So Pete responds and says, this studio is not a vending machine. They're not a two-button vending machine where first we press Elder Scrolls, then we press Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Fallout. They're an incredibly talented studio of creative people. They've now made 4 games in a row, all of which were named Game of the Year, and they have a right to decide what they're interested in working on next and which direction they want to go. So
create a carbon copy CCG with a few little tweaks.
Well, but here's the way I get out of that. And he sounded kind of defensive.
He was pissed. He's just the way you read it. He was
Game
pissed.
of the Year, Elder Scrolls Legends, Game of the Year.
But here's the point is that I'm going to make is that the way I kind of read out of this was, okay, so they're all Game of the Year and they all do pretty well financially. They get good reviews.
Absolutely.
And what he's basically saying, the way I interpret this is what he's saying is, we don't give a fuck how much you downvote this stuff on YouTube. We release it. Everybody buys it. We make shit tons of money. So fuck off. That's how I sort of felt like he was saying. We make really good games. We don't care. We don't care if some small segment doesn't like that we're making this kind of game. We make good games. They're really successful. They're really well regarded. So screw you if you don't like it. Go play something else. We don't care.
As, who am I to argue with the point?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Successful,
fair, valid point. They make great titles. Okay. If you want to do this to me, then do your own thing. This is so much Hearthstone that it's just, it's like they put a line in the middle and said, now we have a different game. That's. Zach, what'd you think?
I think that the Game of the Year thing's kind of funny, considering The Witcher 3 broke the record for Game of the Year awards in that same year. But to the point, Fallout 4 made a ton of money. A ton of money.
Oh, I don't think any of us is arguing the quality of Bethesda's work. I don't think any of us are impugning that in any way, shape, or form here.
A little bugs in there, but whatever.
I have my issues with Fallout 4, which is why I don't think it should have been in the discussion for Game of the Year. But that's because of previous Fallout games and their quality. But regardless of that, when it really comes down to it, the Elder Scrolls Legends, it's a game that I think will cater to people who are waiting for the next Elder Scrolls and maybe want to play something a little bit different. We already have a decent bit of RPGs out there. There's going to be the enhanced edition of the Elder Scrolls Skyrim that's going to be out. That'll also help tide people over. And honestly, as far as what I played of the open beta, I played probably I would say about 3 hours of it last night to prepare for the show. I just wanted to download it, check it out, see if I liked it. I ended up liking it enough where I basically suffered sleep-wise, so that's saying something. And it's one of those things where it's a game that seems very similar to Hearthstone and other cookie cutter CCGs on the surface, but it has details that are significant enough to alter the sort of flow of a game. Instead of having to basically just nuke your target down to 0, you have to be wary of their prophecy cards and the ability for them
True.
to come back immediately in the game.
I did
You
like
have
that.
you have the two lanes, one that's stealth, one that's not.
Well, it's not always that way though.
Every one of the games I played probably about 6 games
Yeah,
in
the
Versus.
lanes sometimes have no effects. The lanes sometimes have wind effects that'll shoot one card from a lane to the opposite lane at the end of a turn. There's all kinds of different lane effects.
Yeah, so that's even
they do some neat little things, which I acknowledged in the first look. So it's just not for me. Sounds like you enjoy it, Jason. You enjoy it. So Bethesda, there you go, 2 out of 3.
I gotta say one thing though, and I didn't get to my criticism yet.
Oh, okay.
So Elder Scrolls Legends, it's aesthetically not that great looking of a game. In certain cases it is. On a 1440p screen, everything was really blurred for the most part. I saw other outlets reporting the same thing in their first look, so I wasn't the only one. And it's one of those things where I was like, okay, well, I want to see at least a little bit of variation as far as what the boards look like. Maybe I've been spoiled with Chronicle and also Hearthstone, where the boards change every so often. It's not a significant thing. Maybe they'll change that in beta and put in new boards. That's good. They need to make it a little bit more high res for higher resolution monitors, because I noticed there was a little bit of blurring going on. And as far as the progression, that's where I'm mainly concerned. All the games I played, the only gold that I got was from the storyline. Like, that's the only progression I got. And I won, I think, 3 out of the 6 games or whatever. Got no gold from it. The only gold that I saw that I was able to get was from quests. Maybe I was bugged. Maybe my account's bugged. I don't know. It's a Bethesda game, so it could be that case. But I don't see any sort of progression here other than the storyline, which is good. I like that storyline. It gives good rewards as you go along it. But if they're going to have this piss poor of a progression system where I can't earn gold more efficiently through just playing the game, I won't play it. That's just how I feel about CCGs. You have to have a decent progression system, and then I will more than likely give you money on top of just playing your game, because I want to feel rewarded for free, because it's a free-to-play game, but also have incentives to also give you money to create more cards and expansions and story content. So,
well, other than the quest, all you get in Hearthstone is that little 10 gold for every 3 wins. So that's virtually nothing anyway. So that's
better than 0.
Well, yeah.
Speaking of Hearthstone, quickly, we're running a little long here today. What was the deal with the whole priest card thing, Jason?
So the new adventure comes out tomorrow, or I guess today if you're watching this on Thursday. And, in these adventures, they usually will have one new card that you can get from every class. And the priest card was one called Purify. And it's really bad. And priest in general is doing really bad in the meta right now. So Ben Brody actually made a specific video. I always keep thinking it's Brody, but I think it's just Brode. He made a video addressing this, saying, yeah, we kind of screwed up. We misread what the state of the meta was for priest, and Purify is not really that good, and we're sorry, and we'll try to make it better later. But I just think it's interesting that he would just come out and say, we screwed up with how powerful we made this card.
All right, let's go and do the weekly bombs. I'm going to go first. I have an undecided bomb. Maybe you guys can answer this for me. I'm not sure how I feel about Ark Survival of the Fittest, the free-to-play portion, the PvP portion of Ark Survival Evolved, the buy-to-play version. They've now folded them back into one buy-to-play game. And I'm not sure how I feel about it, because initially I thought, why on earth would you guys do this? To begin with, when I was doing the first look, it seemed counterintuitive, and you had to oversell the fact that these were 2 different development houses, and this wasn't going to sacrifice development from any title, and now you're folding it back into as a buy-to-play game under the explanation of, we're not really free-to-play game developers, and we don't want to screw this up, so let's just lump it back in. I'm undecided on this one. I can't decide if I like the decision or if I hate the decision at this point. You guys have any thoughts?
I don't know. I honestly like their answer regarding it. I thought it was very open and honest from them. As far as
Yeah,
why they probably did, I think it's probably just the support from the players. I don't think there was a lot that flocked to it when it went free to play, and then they saw that there wasn't a lot of growth month over month. So they're like, okay, well, these players already have it downloaded. We'll let them keep it, but we don't see really anything that we're getting benefits wise from this other than, you know, having a couple players trickle in here and there.
Yeah, and I get that, and I appreciate the honesty too, but before you launched it, you knew you weren't a free-to-play company. So, I mean, it's not like you just learned that after putting it out there. It just seemed very weird to me, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it.
No,
but
I don't either. I'm kind of just, I don't know. I think it's a good decision ultimately, but kind of a silly decision that you had to even make. I don't
yeah,
know.
I mean, I think it's nice at least that they did it very quickly. I mean, it's only been about 2 months or so, 2-3 months since that came out. So it's not like it was out there forever and people
Yeah.
got so used to it. You know, it took them just that long to figure out they weren't doing the right way, so they just kind of pulled it back. So
Go ahead, Zach.
I got an A-bomb for a totally not free-to-play related company, Telltale Games. I guess they're free-to-play for like one episode on mobile and whatnot, but mainly because there's now a Mr. Robot point-and-click game rumored, which I should be excited for. I love Mr. Robot a lot. It's a great show. But they just need to stop spreading themselves so thin for money. Like, it seems like any license that they're able to get, they're just flocking to it. Oh, Batman, we can get Batman. Let's go flock to that. And now they're like, oh, Mr. Robot, we might be able to flock to that. Oh, Game of Thrones, let's flock to that. And next thing you know, they have like 80 different point and clicks that they have to try and develop for, and you wait for ages for the next season. Like, I'm still waiting for Wolf Among Us season 2. That's been what, 3-4 years now, ever since the first one came out, and that was a fantastic game that I really enjoyed. A Game of Thrones, I don't see season 2 coming out for that for a while. I looked at the sales of all these on VG charts, and it doesn't seem like it was a really bad underseller as far as both Game of Thrones and Wolf Among Us. So I
So
don't
you're
really
not mad from a quality standpoint. You're mad
No.
that there's so many IPs that you ain't getting the rest of the
They're
IPs
too
that you're
small.
already playing.
They're too small of a studio, and they're stretching themselves so thin for money. It's ridiculous. They need to stop.
so basically, tell them to stop flocking around.
Exactly. Stick with one thing.
Womp womp. Go ahead, Jason.
The bomb to it almost being football season again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I need guys for my fantasy football that you both in.
Hell no.
Yeah,
I love football, but I don't do the fantasy football stuff.
neither do I.
know. You call yourselves gamers.
All right. From the viewer, Strangelove says, on the part of CCGs, magicman is talking about that all CCGs are the same. Yeah, the core gameplay is the same. It's like, for example, shooters. Basic movement on PC is always WASD and left mouse click to shoot, but the game is totally different from another. So if we look at CCG, yeah, all CCG games have base mechanics, spending resources to play a card, but the way it plays, cards, strategy, are all very different. I think the CCG games are going to be the future because you don't have to spend a lot of time to enjoy all the points of the game. Yeah, well, you know, strange.
Yeah.
Clear, concise, and to the point, brother or sister. You know, I'm not going to argue with you. Go ahead, Zach.
Kalo Vushu, I totally butchered that name.
I think it's versus. I think it's
Kale you
Kailu
versus
versus.
I don't know. Why do I play World of Warcraft? Innovation. Why do I play Heroes of the Storm? Innovation. Why do I play Overwatch? Innovation. Why I have played the original Dota if I was old enough to play games when it was released? Innovation. Why do I play Hearthstone? Innovation. Why do I not play bullshit MMOs that have copied everything and changed nothing like one or two things? I don't even need to answer that. As for toxicity, there is a mute button. In the end, you got to realize people are assholes. The only way to stop them talking trash is muting them.
I don't know if those would have been the titles that I would have used to point out innovation. Like I was going to mention about point. I get the point, and I'm with you. You know what you're saying. I'm not going to argue, but I don't know. Like there would definitely have been a time that I would have used World of Warcraft as my innovation argument, right? But that time was years and years and years ago, and even then, it's arguable on how much it actually innovated versus how much it made more accessible, which I think is ultimately what World of Warcraft did that set itself apart so quickly. I honestly think that nowadays World of Warcraft is a little bit behind on the innovation curve, and I think you kind of see that by taking features out of other MMOs and dropping it in there. Heroes of the Storm, innovation? I don't know. I'm not going to argue the point. I get what you're saying. I don't know if those would have been the games that I used. Jason, it looks like you agree with me.
I was going to say that the word that I've often heard used instead of innovation is iteration.
Yeah, we talked about that.
That seems a little
show,
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Go ahead.
Cartoon 80s 90s says Elder Scrolls Legends is essentially a reskinned Hearthstone, but I do like the art more than Hearthstone. There are a few different things, but in my opinion, it won't be enough to draw some Hearthstone players who have already invested a ton of money there. Maybe if they announce that there won't be expansion cycling and all those cards will be forever in the game, in which case it will die in a couple of years. That's just my
It'll be
aside.
so bloated. Zero Draguno says, another good CCG is Altiel. I think it's Altiel Horizons now, but at any rate, it's a pretty good game. I don't have any experience with it. Do you guys?
Yeah. No, neither do I.
No.
Well, we'll be checking that one out then.
+1 to Crit, who I've actually already replied to, says, I honestly think Zach has absolutely no idea how the world works. Sometimes developers don't care about their players. Sure, I'm positive some don't, but in most cases, then he uses Riot as an example. They haven't done the best job at fixing things, totally agree there, but that doesn't mean they aren't trying at all. The problem is you're looking at developers to do something about a problem they can't control. Players will be assholes. You can't stop that no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, I saw you replied. That's why I put it in the show, to give you a chance to reply
I would just like them to revive the tribunal system, because every time I look at what the status of it is, it's always in maintenance. And I thought that was a good system. As long as they enhanced it, I would be totally fine. But, I don't know.
Go ahead,
Maybe
Jason.
someone can answer in the comments.
All right. Kinetic Fetus says, I've got a couple bombs this week. I dub bombed a Neverwinter on PS4. I do miss the cool stuff I had on my CW Control Warrior?
Cryptic Worlds.
Cryptic World PC account. But it was nice to start over with a fresh character, now a 60 Scourge Warlock. As for the other bomb, an A-bomb to Riders Vicarus, you almost pulled me back with your free stuff, you sneaky bastards.
I think they meant Cryptic Worlds, although it's not Cryptic Worlds, it's Cryptic Studios.
Yeah, Perfect World, Cryptic World. Yeah,
I think you're right. PWPC, CWPC. Yeah, Perfect World.
We judge on spelling and proper editorial standards here. Please do better. Come on, people.
Jeez. Luca Dornjack says, Da-bomb to Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, and Heaven's Word. I got it after I got bored with 99% of all the MMOs. Got in, picked a class, started to play. 5 minutes in, got invited into a novice channel where mentors helped me with everything. I love that they implemented that. From what class to pick to the main story of the game, the community is just wow. Didn't even know that there was a non-toxic community out there. People are polite in dungeons, willing to stop mid-dungeon to explain the rotation and the boss mechanics. I think this can all be attributed to the novice system where people help people, but also to the mid to high time required to level, so you get the time to learn and ask around to improve your knowledge of the class, which results in better runs and much, much less player toxicity. I would like to hear your opinions on the community in Final Fantasy XIV, magicman. I love that they finally implemented the mentor system. I love that they had it in Final Fantasy XI as well. I'm still one achievement away from being able to be a mentor. I think the achievements that are required are a little bit wonky. They kind of punish people that play with a selective group, but whatever. As far as the community itself, I would generally agree with you that it's generally a very positive community. There are some assholes out there, particularly when you get to some of the higher end trials. Like, I remember when initially one right hits me in the head is when Bismarck launched. That was oh god. It can get nasty in there sometimes. The crafting community can get a little sketchy as well, in particular. But to your point, generally, I would agree with you that Final Fantasy XIV has one of the better communities out there, with a few little particular pockets of toxic sometimes. Go ahead, Zach.
Lou Gaming says Jason is fucking funny as hell, and he needs his own video series where he just makes jokes on games kind of like Yahtzee from The Escapists. Too awesome.
There you go, Jason.
Thanks. Although I don't have nearly the skill that Yahtzee has. I've watched a lot of his videos. And
Question of the week last week. How would you police or reward a gaming community to cut back on toxic behavior? We got a lot of people chiming in on this, so I had to narrow this down a bit. And I'm sorry if I edited your comments because some of them were very, very long, but I wanted to get the the meat and potatoes of what our viewers were saying. Azza says, I like what ArcheAge does by having a jury of random players to judge the player who broke the game's rules, and the judge gives the sentence, but the judge should be either an official staff or an NPC or really high level with really good standings, because a judge shouldn't be breaking the game's rules. I also like how you got to spend time in prison if you break the rules, and if you break out, you get a huge debuff, and anyone can try to apprehend you, and the person who apprehends you and returns you to the prison gets a reward of some currency or boosts with good influence. I think a prison and court jury should be implemented into more MMOs in the future. But a lot of the MMO communities are terrible, and I was even doing good trying to help some players kill a monster in a fantasy MMO, and they were getting mad at me because I wasn't using the strongest attacks. I was just saving up my mana and trying to use healing skills so we wouldn't die. I also got one more idea to help communities be less toxic. When you're being a jerk and you get a warning and a small debuff for 30 days and trapped in a jail for 15 days, and if you break the rules again within the 15 days, you get trapped in jail for 30 days. And not just a few hours, and if you break out, you get a huge debuff and red flag by your name, and everyone can attack you and try to catch you and return you to jail for a bounty. Holy shit. On a sub-base game, I'd stop playing. Fuck you, I'm out of here. Go ahead, Zach.
Michael Coffey says, I like letting people see you're a jerk. I also think it should be 50% game creators and 50% the community. They have to hire people to read chat logs, pull how and what they are doing. When the developer values happy customers over dollars, jerks will be banned and banned permanently. Love seeing you again, Mr. Magic. Got a heck of a backlog to view.
Oh, yeah, well, good to see you, too. I've been back for 2 years now, Jason?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. Whose turn is it?
Mine.
Go ahead.
But I love that we've got one person saying I'm really funny, and we got another person who loves to see you. And the comment about Zach is absolutely no idea what he's talking about. Anyway, so Paul McGuire says, when it comes to toxic people, there's a mute. Stop deleting stuff in my thing.
I'm not. I'm inserting apostrophes.
Okay. Oh, God, I don't need it. I can live without the apostrophes.
I can't. It kills me.
Paul McGuire says, when it comes to toxic people, there's a mute button. By being babies about it, you just give trolls more reason to troll. It's not a development issue. It's a community thing. Personally, I like to talk shit. If you don't like it to the point where you want to complain, please mute me. Don't be a bitch. Solve the problem yourself before it gets to making you look like a bitch, because I will make you cry. Well, the way I solve the problem is by reporting your ass to the game so that you get banned for a few days. So there you go.
That's basically what I do. I even respond half the time.
Paul's making Jason cry. Excel Kobayashi says, question of the week, the problem isn't that they can't get rid of these players. Any existing systems would work fine if they actually tried to enforce them with permanent and harsh penalties. The real problem is they don't want to eliminate toxic players because the toxic players are still generating money. They can quantify the amount of money they would lose by banning them, but they can't quantify the number of players they're losing because of the toxic players. They tend to ban some of the most toxic players, maybe like the top 5%, but they won't ban the rest until everyone else proves to them that they won't tolerate the toxic players anymore. And that's, that's a fair argument done specifically with metrics. Go ahead, Zach.
Mega17 says, you could tell these guys know very little about the ideas and lengths explored by Riot to cool down toxicity on League of Legends. LOL. They actually have an external university of psychologists and scholars studying this stuff and have posted videos about it repeatedly in the past.
No, we're well aware of it. It just, none of it's worked.
And it's also not really that recent from what I've seen. I did a whole, like, when I saw some of the comments, I did a lot of research on this stuff. I could not find a lot recently, so I don't know.
Question of the week this week. Tell me the funniest MMO disaster you and your friends ever had. I mean, it could be a Leroy Jenkins type in-game story or something that happened while you were playing. Just something you couldn't stop laughing over when your friends pulled a huge bonehead move in-game. I have a few of those stories. We'll share them next week. Zach's on the show. Q will be back now that she's in her new house there as well. Until next week, Zach, where can everybody find you, sir?
Everyone can find me on Twitter at Zach Sharps. I've been posting more about gaming lately than other things. Probably will be football mixed in there now because football started and I can't help myself. So, yeah, just follow me on Twitter and you'll get a lot of random gaming stuff and football stuff in your feed.
Mr. Tim Tebow.
Oh, God. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/JasonWinter. Find me on Twitter at WinterInformal. And if you want to join my fantasy football league, hit me up on Twitter and let me know.
I would just like to say that I am not impressed with the amount of time you have played The Witcher 3 on Steam. That needs to be rectified. Until next week,
Sorry.
I'm Mike Byrne, aka Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter at MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN1, or of course, come on over to MMOBomb.com. Check out all the other great videos, content, giveaways, articles, and editorials there. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.